Welcome to the cutting edge of GTM Talk. You're tuning in to the first ever AI-powered go-to-market podcast, brought to you by Exordium. Our AI podcasters provide an educated and impartial view on the discussion topics that are widely relevant in today's business landscape. Join us as this series will dive into all the different disruptive end-to-end go-to-market strategies, from marketing and sales to customer success. The main objective is to share practical strategies and execution plans to help you drive the most effective go-to-market outcomes. In our last episode, we broke down why offshoring talent is essential for tech startups to survive in today's market. In this episode, we're taking it a step further. We're diving deep into real-world success stories, including a special guest who was initially skeptical about offshoring, but he was pleasantly surprised by the results he got. Make sure to follow us on Spotify and YouTube so you never miss an episode. Let's get into it.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving into something that I think a lot of people listening are probably pretty curious about.
Yeah.
And it's all about how one seasoned go-to-market consultant's leveraging offshore talent to really scale his clients' businesses.
It's really fascinating.
Yeah.
You know what's so interesting about this particular case is that the consultant, Adam, who's the owner of Spartan Endeavors, he was actually initially super skeptical about using offshore teams. He had all the usual concerns, right?
Yeah.
Like communication issues, cultural differences, all that stuff.
Absolutely understandable.
But he was actually driven to explore this option because of some serious bottlenecks that he was seeing in one of his clients' sales processes.
Interesting. Okay, so tell me a little bit more about this client and what was going on.
Yeah, so Adam's working with a client, and their email and LinkedIn outreach for a particular offer was just tanking, not working.
Yeah.
So as a GTM expert, especially, focused on early stage companies, Adam suggests, hey, let's try a phone-based approach.
Makes sense.
Right. Makes perfect sense. That's his bread and butter.
Right.
But the client is not sold on the idea of hiring U.S.-based callers for this.
Okay, so what happened? Did they just give up on the phone outreach?
Not at all. This is where it gets really, really interesting.
Okay.
So driven by these challenges, Adam decides, you know what? I'm going to pilot an offshore team. And the results, hold on to your hats, because he gets this fully operational team up and running in just 1 week.
1 week.
1 week.
That's crazy.
It's lightning fast.
I mean, because anybody who's listening who's ever done any hiring knows.
Yeah.
Especially for, sales teams or business development, it can take forever.
Yeah.
So how did he pull that off in a week?
He leveraged his network. So Adam, he posts on LinkedIn, and he's essentially asking for recommendations for an offshore talent provider that has, a few things that he's looking for. 1, fast turnaround time.
Yeah.
2, excellent English communication skills.
Yeah.
And 3, a knack for finding top-notch callers, people who can actually get on the phones and do this.
Right.
So a trusted connection, someone that Adam actually served within the Marine Corps, recommended Exordium talent.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
The power of referrals, right.
Absolutely.
So he reaches out to Exordium Talent, and they get back to him with 3 qualified candidates within 24 hours, complete with resumes, skills summaries, and even voice introductions.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
That's efficiency.
That is efficient.
Yeah, so Adam's able to pretty quickly review the candidates' profiles. Interviews are conducted within a couple of days. They select, the perfect fit. And boom, the chosen candidate is ready to start the following week.
Right.
So the entire process from initial outreach to onboarding, 7 days.
That's incredible.
It is.
Okay, so let's rewind just a little bit. You said that Adam was initially skeptical about offshore talent. What were some of his specific concerns?
Well, like many people, he had some preconceived notions about offshore talent.
Yeah.
He worried about potential communication barriers, cultural differences impacting workflow.
Yeah.
And just the whole, managing a team remotely.
Right, and especially when, he's built his expertise in, go-to-market and sales. That is very much a relationship-driven kind of profession.
Absolutely.
So I can see how that would be a concern for sure.
Yeah, so these are all totally valid concerns, right?
Yeah.
Especially for those of us who are used to working with, in-house teams or teams that are, at least in the same country.
Right, in the same time zone.
In the same time zone.
Yeah.
So how did he address those concerns? Did he just take a leap of faith and hope for the best?
Or was there a more thought out approach to this?
No, he had a very strategic approach. So first of all, partnering with Exordium Talent provided like a smooth and efficient onboarding experience.
Okay.
Right? It minimized like all the usual hassles of international hiring.
Yeah.
And remember, that personal referral from a trusted source, I think, helped alleviate some of those initial anxieties as well.
Totally, yeah. Because when you have somebody you trust vouching for a company or a service, it gives you that extra level of comfort.
It does.
Okay, so finding the right partner was obviously key. But what about the actual management of the offshore team? Like once they were onboarded, how did Adam ensure that things ran smoothly despite the distance?
Well, Adam's a seasoned GTM consultant, right?
Right.
So he approached managing the offshore team just like he would any high-performing team.
Okay.
He set clear expectations,
Okay.
established KPIs,
Right.
and provided detailed training to bridge any potential gaps in understanding.
So being very proactive.
Very proactive. He knew that proactively addressing potential issues was going to be crucial for success.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because if you wait until things start to go wrong, it's usually too late to course correct.
Yeah, and it can be a lot harder to fix things when you're dealing with those, geographical and potentially, communication barriers.
Absolutely. You got to get ahead of those things.
Yeah.
So I like that. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and what's interesting is he also took a very data-driven approach to performance management.
Okay, so let's dial into that a little bit, because I think a lot of our listeners who are revenue leaders or consultants themselves trying to scale their own teams, they're probably curious to hear what Adam's data-driven approach actually looked like.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's something that's, pretty universal. Like you can apply this to any team, really.
Okay.
It's all about clarity and transparency. So he established clear daily and weekly KPIs,
Okay.
implemented robust data reporting mechanisms, and made sure that the team had access to all the information they needed to track their own progress.
Okay.
And then he provided consistent and iterative feedback,
Okay.
just like he would with a US-based team.
So essentially treating the offshore team with the same level of professionalism and rigor as he would any other team, making sure that everybody was aligned on goals and performance metrics.
Precisely.
And that's something that any leader can implement regardless of where their team is located.
Exactly.
Right. I mean, that eliminates ambiguity.
Yeah.
It fosters a culture of accountability.
Absolutely.
And it's interesting how, those fundamental management principles, when they're applied consistently, can really bridge those geographical and cultural divides.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like Adam's really debunking the myth that managing offshore talent requires like a completely different playbook.
Exactly. And the results speak for themselves.
Okay.
Adam was incredibly satisfied with the offshore team's performance. They consistently hit their targets and exceeded expectations.
Wow. So they actually performed well.
They did. They really did.
That's fantastic.
It's pretty impressive.
Okay, so let's be real. I think for a lot of our listeners, one of the biggest factors in considering offshore talent is cost effectiveness.
Yeah.
Like, did Adam's client actually see any significant financial benefits from this pilot program?
Absolutely. They were able to achieve substantial cost savings compared to hiring a similar team in the U.S.
Okay.
This allowed them to allocate their budget more strategically, reinvest those savings into other areas of the business. And remember, this cost effectiveness didn't come at the expense of quality.
Right, that's a key point, right? Because it's not just about like getting the cheapest option. It's about maximizing your ROI without sacrificing quality.
Exactly.
So I'm curious now, how did this successful pilot program impact Adam's overall perspective on offshore talent? Like, did it change the way he approached his consulting at all?
I think it was a game changer for him. He went from being, hesitant about offshore talent to being a true advocate for its strategic use.
Okay.
And, he initially focused on using it for cold calling. But the success of this pilot, I think, opened his eyes to a much wider range of possibilities.
Okay, so it's not just about like filling a specific gap. It's about like strategically leveraging offshore talent to create a more efficient and scalable business model.
Exactly. And that's where the real value lies for Adam's clients.
Okay.
They gain access to, cost-effective talent, the ability to scale rapidly, specialized skills, and increased efficiency across various business functions.
Okay, so give me some examples of like some other areas where Adam sees potential for leveraging offshore talent.
He's now exploring how offshore resources can be used for tasks like, data research, lead generation, appointment setting, content creation, and even customer support. The possibilities are vast.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, it really depends on the specific needs of each client.
That makes sense.
But, I think what's exciting about this is that it really opens up a whole new world of options for businesses
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
might not have considered this before.
And I think it's, especially valuable for our listeners who are, most of them are likely looking for ways to optimize their operations.
Yeah.
And achieve sustainable growth, right? Like, who's not?
Right. Everybody's trying to do more with less.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think this is a really timely and relevant topic.
So I'm curious now, for our listeners who might still be on the fence about using offshore talent,
Yeah.
what would you say are like the most compelling reasons to consider it?
I think there are three key benefits. Okay.
Right.
So one, you gain access to a global talent pool, right?
Hmm.
That allows you to tap into specialized skills and expertise that might not be readily available locally.
Okay.
Two, it can be incredibly cost-effective, enabling you to optimize your budget and allocate resources more strategically.
Yep.
And finally, it provides the flexibility to scale your operations rapidly,
Okay.
adapting to changing market demands and seizing new opportunities quickly.
Yeah, and I think what I'm hearing from you is it's really about like thinking beyond traditional hiring models.
Yeah.
And embracing a more global and agile approach to building teams.
Exactly. Yeah. It's about recognizing that talent can come from anywhere in the world.
Yeah, and I think Adam's story really exemplifies that.
Yeah.
It sounds like his experience offers a really powerful blueprint for success. He not only overcame his own skepticism, but he also discovered a strategic advantage that he can now pass on to his clients.
Absolutely. It's a testament to the fact that sometimes the greatest opportunities lie outside our comfort zones.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great takeaway. Okay, so now let's switch gears just a little bit and offer some practical advice to our listeners. So we've talked about the benefits of offshore talent, but what are some of the key considerations when making the decision to actually incorporate it into your business strategy?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think the first step is to clearly define your needs and objectives.
Okay.
So, what specific tasks or functions are you looking to outsource? What are your budget constraints?
Yeah.
What level of expertise are you seeking? Once you have a clear understanding of your requirements, then you can start exploring different offshore talent providers.
Okay, so it's about like doing your due diligence and research, finding a partner that aligns with your specific needs and values.
Exactly.
Ah.
Look for providers with a proven track record, strong communication skills, and a robust vetting process for their talent pool. And don't hesitate to ask for referrals or case studies to get a better sense of their capabilities.
It's really about like finding a partner you can trust who understands the nuances of your industry.
Absolutely.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. And another important factor is cultural alignment.
Okay.
While cultural differences can bring fresh perspectives and innovation, it's crucial to choose a team that shares your core values and work ethic.
Yeah.
This can help ensure a smoother transition and minimize potential misunderstandings down the line.
So cultural sensitivity and the ability to bridge those gaps are essential. Okay. So what about the practical aspects of managing an offshore team? Like any tips for our listeners who might be new to this?
Yeah, communication is key.
Okay.
Establish clear channels of communication, set expectations up front,
Yeah.
and be available to address any questions or concerns.
Okay.
Also, invest in robust project management tools
Okay.
that facilitate collaboration and keep everyone on the same page.
Right. So technology can definitely play a crucial role in bridging that distance
Yeah,
and ensuring that, seamless workflow.
absolutely.
Right.
And finally, don't underestimate the importance of building relationships.
Okay.
Make an effort to get to know your offshore team members on a personal level.
Yeah, like humanize the experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even just simple things like, asking about their weekend or sharing a little bit about your life outside of work can go a long way in building trust and rapport.
Totally.
Yeah,
And fostering that sense of connection, which I think is so important.
it is.
When you're working with a team, no matter where they are.
It is.
All right. Well, this has been a really fascinating exploration of, how leveraging a global workforce can really unlock incredible potential for businesses of all sizes. But before we wrap up, I want to circle back to those initial concerns that Adam had about managing an offshore team effectively, especially considering the potential for cultural differences and communication barriers.
Yeah, that's a really crucial point. And remember, Adam was initially worried about things like time zone differences.
Yeah.
communication styles,
Yeah.
and just the general challenges of managing a team remotely, right?
Right. Those are valid concerns. And I think, a lot of our listeners are probably nodding their heads right now like, yeah, those are the things that I worry about too.
Yeah.
So how did Adam actually navigate those potential hurdles?
He was very proactive and intentional in his approach. He knew that clear communication was paramount.
Okay.
So he invested a significant amount of time up front to make sure that his offshore team understood his leadership style, the client's goals, and the specific KPIs that they needed to achieve.
So like setting those expectations from the get-go, making
Right.
sure everybody's aligned on the big picture.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he didn't just rely on emails or instant messaging.
Okay.
He scheduled regular video calls.
Okay.
And not just for work updates,
Mm-hmm.
but also for just casual conversations to foster that sense of connection and build rapport with the team.
Oh, I think those like non-work related interactions are so important because it really helps humanize the experience, especially when you're working with people from different cultural backgrounds. I think it, helps build trust,
Right.
understanding,
Exactly.
which is essential for any successful team.
Absolutely.
And did he encourage the team to communicate with him proactively as well?
Absolutely. He encouraged his offshore team to proactively communicate any challenges or concerns they were facing.
Okay.
He made it clear that he valued their input and wanted to create an open and collaborative work environment.
So creating that psychological safety
Yeah.
where people feel comfortable speaking up
Exactly.
and contributing their ideas
Yeah.
without fear of judgment. That's so important.
It is. It really is.
I'm curious about how Adam handled performance feedback with his offshore team. Did he, any insights there?
He stuck to the same principles he would use with any team,
Okay.
emphasizing clarity, specificity, and actionability.
Okay.
So he provided regular feedback, both positive and constructive,
Okay.
and make sure that it was always tied to specific data points and performance metrics.
So it was a data-driven.
Data-driven.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was all about creating this data-driven feedback loop
Right.
that empowered the team to continuously learn and improve.
So he wasn't just saying like good job or bad job. He was very specific and tied to
Yeah.
actual,
Measurable results.
measurable results. Yeah.
Yeah, and because he'd already established those clear KPIs and communication channels, the feedback process was really seamless and effective.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And it just reinforces the importance of like setting that foundation from the beginning.
Exactly.
It sounds like Adam's experience really highlights how those fundamental management principles,
Yeah.
when applied consistently, can bridge those geographical and cultural divides.
Yeah, and that's a powerful takeaway for our listeners, right?
Yeah.
It's not about reinventing the wheel or coming up with a completely different management style for offshore teams. It's about sticking to those core principles.
Yeah.
Clear communication, goal setting, and data-driven feedback.
And remembering that building trust and rapport is just as important when your team is spread across the globe.
Absolutely.
All right, well, before we wrap things up, let's connect all of this back to our listeners, who are mainly, revenue leaders, sales advisors, and startup founders. What are some of the key takeaways that they can apply to their own businesses?
Yeah, I think Adam's journey demonstrates that leveraging offshore talent, it's no longer a niche strategy. It's becoming increasingly mainstream as businesses recognize the value of accessing that global talent pool and scaling their operations more efficiently.
So it's about staying competitive
Yeah.
in today's rapidly evolving market.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be an all or nothing approach, right?
Right.
You can start small, perhaps with a pilot program for a specific task or function,
Like Adam did.
just like Adam did.
Yeah.
And then as you gain more experience and confidence, you can gradually expand your use of offshore talent to other areas of your business.
So finding the right fit for your specific needs and goals.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And remember, success with offshore talent really depends on those core principles we've been discussing.
Okay.
Clear communication, strong partnerships,
Yep.
cultural sensitivity, and effective performance management.
Great advice.
Yeah.
It sounds like Adam's experience offers a very compelling roadmap for any business leader who's looking to explore the potential of offshore talent.
It certainly does. His story is a testament to the power of challenging assumptions, embracing new approaches, and harnessing that global talent pool to achieve remarkable results.
I love it. Well, we hope you found this deep dive insightful and inspiring. Remember, the world of talent is no longer limited by geographical boundaries.
Right.
So be bold, explore your options, and unlock the incredible potential that awaits you.
Before you go, be sure to hit subscribe and tap the bell icon to stay updated on all our upcoming episodes. We'll be sharing real-world customer outcomes that highlight the benefits of offshore GTM, diving into the era of reduced venture capital, discussing the new realities tech companies face, talk about founder mode in GTM, and more. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.